kfi.org.
Hello, this is Farrah from the Datable Rebels. I hope that my eggs have successfully gotten a link to this recording for everybody. Anyways, today I'm super excited about the episode that we are doing. It's the first of a series on polyamory and ethical non-monogamy. The reason I started doing a podcast is because I am fascinated in the psychology of relationships and how people relate to each other. I mean, life is relating. We all relate with everything. And so the way that we've been doing relationships is really morphing into something different. It's not working for most people. I think it's really fascinating when it does work for people. I don't know a lot of people that it actually works for in the long run, but I think it's beautiful. Relationships help us grow and see our innermost dark spaces so we can do the work that we need to do for ourselves and for the world. So with that, I think that's beautiful and amazing. It's fucking hard work to do. We know this. But I'm really excited about this show, this episode, because there will be three amazing people who have been on this journey for a while. And they will give you all and me a lot of information that I probably didn't even think about before. So please join me on this journey. And I hope that you're having a wonderful day or night wherever you are. Right now it's snowing. And it's like a snow globe. It's October 20th. Yay. So join us, enjoy the show, and people should be joining us soon. So I'm going to start out with Alana Bliss right now, who we see. Alana Bliss has been exploring solutions to ecology, social changes, holistic wellness, mutually supportive relationships, and conscious birth over the 10 years. Alana is a permaculturalist, home birth doula, speaker, and co-founder of both the Fruition Center for Holistic Ecology in Costa Rica and Green Guild's Ecological Design in Minnesota. Wow. She incorporates holistic wellness and permaculture to design supportive relationships between humans and nature. Alana, her children, and her partner moved to Minnesota in 2014 so their children could get a good education. She has identified with polyamorous for 7 years and has had multiple kinds of non-traditional partnerships. Sarah Mathews lives in Minneapolis and was a serial monogamist before diving into the world of non-monogamy 2 years ago. She is a mental health therapist who specializes in high sensitivity in relationships and is endlessly fascinated by relationships, intimacy, and connection. Mm-hmm. When not swirling in the world of relating, you might find her having long conversations with her 2 cats, me too, hanging upside down from an aerial silk or emoji text bombing a friend, or spending too long editing photos that she just took. Sarah Mathews. Hello.
Hello.
Emon, don't kill me if I say your butcher your last name. I hope I don't. Emon?
That's actually not my last name. Emon is my last name.
Shaheier?
Yeah. But I go by Emon. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Emon Shaheier is from Bangladesh, has been in the US for more than 20 years. He works as a software engineer and has been exploring the world of ethical non-monogamy for 3 years. Emon.
Hello.
Oh my God, I hate doing intros.
What's your intro?
Yeah, what's your intro?
My intro? Oh my God. My intro is, I don't even know.
They're hard to write, aren't they?
They are. They really are.
Yeah.
I mean, hang out with my cats a lot. I'm really interested in relationships and, the psychology of relationships. And that's why I'm doing this. And yeah. So I put a couple of posts up on the web, on Facebook, and asked people to ask questions. And I have some questions for you all.
Awesome.
So, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first question is, what are the different styles of polyamory? This is a big question, huh?
Whoa.
Yeah. That's what I
Well, they're as unique as the people that are engaged in them. Yeah, I mean, I have a whole definitions list that we could run through, but yeah. Anybody else want to give it?
The first of all is the acronym we were using, ENM, right? The ethical non-monogamy. So that's kind of the umbrella term, and underneath that, one of the style is polyamory, and if you ask then the types of polyamory, so there could be, like, let's say you have multiple partners and your partners can have multiple partners. That's like most of the time people think that the way it works, but there are people out there who are, one person is polyamorous, but then their partner is monogamous. So even that kind of format is out there too. So yeah, as Sarah is saying, like, it's just really up to the individuals and individual relationship.
Yeah. It's basically, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, there's different types of polyamory in that it's all dependent on what a person wants, right? So like, for example, there's solo polyamorous people who are, they don't want to partner up. They just want to be able to have multiple partners that don't live with them necessarily, or aren't on the escalator of a partnership.
And a relationship. Yes.
Yep. And so then there's also people who are asexual, who are polyamorous, who don't actually want sexual relationships, but they want the intimacy that is brought by polyamorous people. So they could be, either polyamorous themselves, or they could be in a partnership with someone who is polyamorous, who does want sexuality, but loves this person. So, or you could have someone, like what Emon was saying, where you have both partners that are polyamorous, or just one partner. It kind of, there's a serious spectrum.
Yeah. Because we were, before we talked, we started just like a little text feed about, oh man, all the terms, we just even started there. So I actually pulled up a book. It's a really great book. It's, which one is this one? More Than Two. And I pulled up the glossary from it, and it has like hundreds of terms and I was like, just so that if we really want to, get specific, but literally poly means more than like multiple loves. So it's like when, I think that's where it's like, when you think of non-monogamy, it just means, well, you're in more than one relationship. And then polyamory, if you think about it, is typically you love more than one person. You're engaged in like a committed or some level of a romantic and perhaps sexual or just relationship type of thing. But then there's solo polyamory, there's multi-amory, there's pods, there's, you have a pod, and then you have somebody might have a relationship outside of that. You have, you might go through phases of, right, like where you, anyway, it goes on and on and on and on. So I think it just depends on, like they were saying, like determining what it is that feels right for you. And then the ethical part of it is really communicating to your partner or partners about what that looks like, what everybody's comfortable with, what expectations are, what,
some people, are okay with it getting to a certain point, like there's sensuality, where some people are like poly to align. Everyone has their degree of what they're comfortable with within different partnerships. Like full open polyamory, where everyone's able to get like intimate sexually, is one level. But then I've met people who are polysensual, and they could cuddle and they could have like intimacy in that way. But then there was that line to like it also depends on the person. But this couple was polysensual to no like saliva exchange or bodily fluid exchange.
Fluid bonding.
Yeah, fluid bond. Thank you. She's got all the terms.
Interesting.
Yeah, and the idea isn't really the open relationship dynamic isn't really new. It's been there as long as humans are around, right? It's just that now the information flows very easily, and we are sharing ideas, and some people are like, well, I guess that's what I'm doing, and so then people are taking on these terms, and then they're changing them, right, based on their own needs. So it's just right now, because of the information flow, people are finding out stuff. But I feel like even without label, people have been doing things, living their life. So it's just a way of being human.
Yeah. And some people think that, or kind of, feel that being polyamorous is more of like a sexual identity or a sexual orientation almost, where I am like saying like, I am monogamous, therefore like I just am attracted to, attracted to one person. I'm, oriented towards just being with one person, committing to one person. I am a monogamous person, right? And so some people say, well, I'm a non-monogamous person or polyamorous, in that I tend towards like falling in love or having sexual relationships or whatever with more than one person. And that's not going to stop if I even just meet one person that I'm madly in love with and I want to.
Yeah, that will go into like some kind of a highly philosophical discussion, because if you ask me,
I was going to say, like, how do you, what is how does that happen?
Because if you ask me, we are all built polyamorous.
Yeah.
We are just, that's what I believe. I believe that socially, like the issue that we have is our insecurities, our vulnerabilities. And I feel like, basically some guy with some dudes with beard way back decided that, all right, we're vulnerable, we are insecure, we're going to control women. How can we do this? All right, we're going to come up with monogamy. We're going to control them. We're going to implement this idea, spread this idea into people, and we will get to do it, right? Like in my religion, where it came from, I don't really practice. We can legally marry. We can legally have 4+ wives, but we don't let women do it.
Right.
So it's all, I feel like it's this idea that men just came up with, and it's like we are all humans. The need is the same. It's individually, you can be like, all right, I don't really want to do it right now. I mean, it's ebbs and flow, it changes. But I feel like kind of the baseline, we're kind of like, we're not like penguins, like made for life kind of way, right? So it's just that to deal with the vulnerabilities and insecurities, we implemented this solution, and it's kind of a universal solution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like I always think about it as like on I don't know if a spectrum is a good, right? Like it's like we think the normal standard or what society has said is that you're either like monogamous, like the bell curve is like monogamy is in the middle. Most people are monogamous. And then you have these outliers that are non-monogamous and these outliers that are right, like asexual, or I don't know. And I think of it more as like, I think it's, probably non-monogamy or just general interest in more than one person or attractiveness. Or, I mean, even if you think of friends, we can have really intimate friendships with people, but it's not non-monogamy, right? Yeah. But it's like that wire for some kind of connection, whether it's sexual or intimate or friend, or we're wired, a lot of us, not everybody, but are wired for some level of connection. So it's just kind of how we decide to do that, or what our society says okay with that, or what we feel comfortable with, or, and so I think it's more like bell curve, as there's people that are very specifically monogamous, that are just like fall in love with somebody else and nobody else exists. I think that's probably on one spectrum, like some level of a non-monogamy kind of, right, something, whatever that looks like, one partner, but multiple intimate friendships. Why is that not, whatever, somewhere in the middle. And then maybe not interested in anybody, or not wanting any kind of connection, any kind of sexual, anything is probably on one other extreme. That's kind of how I think about it.
It's anyway. Like in any type of relationship, it could be friends, it could be family members, it could be your kids. We are totally cool with having multiple relationships, but right when it comes to romantic relationship, it has to be exclusive. Right. So it's just like,
So I have a question for all of you. Sorry to interrupt. How did you all find that you are polyamorous, or that you wanted to explore having relationships with other people and not being monogamous? How did you figure that out?
Before I answer, I just wanted to add a little bit of something to the last thing that we were talking about. I think also it changes in a relationship. And this is really, for me, I came across this where it shifts a lot when I got pregnant. Because when I got pregnant, I did not want a polyamorous relationship with my person that I was having a baby with. Because I was feeling like, one, I was going to be really emotional, and I wanted that sense of security in that moment. And so we got monogamous, and we agreed. We talked about it. It wasn't like I said, you better do this. I was like, hey, I'm really feeling like right now, I need to be monogamous because I want that support and that love and connection. Cedar.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, until I'm feeling like this intimate seed that we're kind of creating together in the form of a baby and family, when it's like a little bit more mature, then, we're opening it up again. And not to say everyone does that, but that's for me what I needed in order to feel really safe.
Yeah.
Totally.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And saying, right, like I think that's the thing too. It's like, you're either born this or you're born that, or you're oriented this way. And it's like, I think humans are a lot more like growth mindset, change mindset. We're not the same person. I'm not the same person I was when I was 20, or even 5 years ago, it's like you evolve and change. And so, right, life circumstances change.
Yeah. And so for me, when I encountered non-monogamy first, it was in the form of polygamy. And I was in a relationship with a Muslim man who was polygamous, and he wanted that to be a part of our relationship. And I, at first I was hesitant, but then I agreed. And so, in a form of like sister wives, and where we were all connected. And I saw, as a mother, I saw the benefit of like having a community of other women that were, collaboratively raising the family. Unfortunately, I think he was intimidated by actually having multiple women in his life that were together. And so he just cheated on me. But that was my first experience. It wasn't bad. It was just different. And that's why I like polyamory. It's because it allows for the women to also be involved in that. Sorry. Let's just have some
Somebody else want to go?
For me, I think it's something I've kind of always been naturally oriented to. Like, it always made sense to me. Like, I always had lots of attraction to various people, right? For me, I'd say I'm really like sticking to my commitments, and like being clear in communication and being respectful of my relationships are really, really important. And so, it's like if I was in a relationship, then I would still have attraction to other people, but I just dealt with it. Or it was, it's like my primary thing was being, respectful of the relationship I was in. And I think just, maybe my age, I was introduced into non-monogamy. I started getting resources for the books and, starting reading about this stuff. And I'm like, oh, I'm reading about what already makes sense to me. It's just, now I'm just meeting people that are also speaking the same language and are being as ethical or as respectful as I would want to be in being able to do this. Because I think my perception before is like, yeah, so everybody's just going to cheat on everybody, and I'm like, that's not for me, right? But I found some of the most respectful and communicative and growth-oriented and relationship or person-focused people doing this. And so actually it's been really eye-opening and a really beautiful fit for me, and something that feels freeing and natural and open. And I think it depends on the partners that you have too, I would have to say, but yeah, but that's like anything, right? And that's like any relationship. It can change your thoughts and your opinions and your feelings about it depending on who you're with. So yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it was like 5-6 years ago. Like I was started making new friends here in Boston, and a bunch of my friends were openly poly. They were like talking about it, like almost like evangelist kind of way, which is kind of, not my thing. I'm like, hey, this is just not my primary thing. But for those guys, they were just like every other word. They're like, oh, I'm poly. I'm like, but in a way that helped.
You bad.
Yeah, in a way, I'm like, oh, so there's something I guess people do. So just got curious, and then when I was out in dating app kind of scene, my current partner right now, she hit me up, and then we started chatting, and she's like, yeah, like if you are interested, think about it, because she's like, I do say, like in my poly circle, we say that date your own species, right? Because like you might not be poly person, but I want to try it out if you are interested. I'm like, all right, let's see where it goes, and it's 3 years in. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's when I met you, right?
Yeah. I mean, I used to go back and forth in Minnesota because of my job, and we met at that time. Yeah.
I think for me, I was, after the first relationship, I was kind of like, I had a little bit of a bitter taste in my mouth around the non-ethical elements of it. And so I was hesitant, but my ex-husband was really into like being open. And so like, even in our vows, we didn't say like, till death do us part or anything. We just kind of held the space in case we wanted it. And then at some point, we have a farm in Costa Rica, and someone came there, and he and I kind of fell in love. And before we did anything, we asked permission from my husband at the time, like say, hey, okay, this is something that I'm, are you open to me like opening up our relationship and becoming poly? And he was open to it. And so we were all living together like right away, because it was a farm with volunteers, and we had kids. I had 2 children from the Muslim man. He passed. He died in 2007. And so, I had those 2 children, then I have 4 altogether. And so when I ended up being with Joseph, my current partner, because we all lived together and we cultivated a really powerful relationship, and the 2 of them, Jason and Joseph, are totally best friends, and still to this day are very, very close. The transition with the kids was awesome. Like they never felt their father like was gone. They just felt.
Sorry.
Hello.
They just felt like the family expanded. And so as it transitioned into different forms, they just felt like it was bigger. And I just kept telling them, you remember when your brother was born and how I didn't love you any less? I just loved more. They were like, yeah. So, well, that's what's going on here, is that, Joseph's here, and I'm just loving more. And over time now it's kind of transitioned where Joseph is more their father regularly, and Jason is too, but he's still in Costa Rica. So it's but it was really amazing to see with children how this like tribal relationship can just be so nourishing and give them so many more support systems than they have with just a traditional like 2-parent partnership.
Sure.
So I'm just amazed by it.
I think we just lost sound.
Oh no.
I just think that it's a really like we're tribal beings, humans, and we've always existed in these like partnerships that were more than just two people. I mean, we've evolved and survived over years with tribes and, you know, communities. And so it's, I think, more in our nature to Trina. Are you guys still there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it might, you know, like all the stories you're hearing, and I'm not gonna speak for you two guys, but even my story might sound like, oh, okay, everything is hunky-dory, but it's a lot of hard work. It's
relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but then I still, you know, like I keep on saying that I'm experimenting. So at some point I might decide not to do. We were just talking about like people change and they change their dynamic of relationship dynamic. So even if I change, I still would like, if some new person says that, what is this thing? Do you recommend this? I would like, absolutely, go for it, try it out. You're going to learn so much and you'll come out of it as a really, really better version of you than where you are right now. So that's what I say to people whenever.
I remember it was either reading a book or a podcast when I was trying to understand, because I think I took, once it was introduced to me, I took like 6 months or 5 or 6 months and just read about it and asked questions and taught, you know, just to kind of wrap my brain around it. And in one of the podcasts or books or something, it said, don't think relationships in general, but non-monogamy is all about this happy bliss sexual thing. You know, you know, go into it thinking it with the intention of self-growth, you know? And
I would think a lot of work.
Yeah. You know, I think it depends on the partners again, right? Like it's like some partners, like you trigger each other in certain ways or come with certain tasks or relationships or have metamor. If you don't know what metamor is, it's like your partner's partner or partners, metamor. You know, and there might be some conflict there or, you know, there might be scheduling challenges or there might be jealousy that comes up, or there might be, I mean, there's all of these things that come up in monogamous relationships too. But it's just you're dealing with it more acutely. Often it's in your face a little bit more when you're, because it's naturally a little bit more non-secure because you don't, right? You're doing agreements and all these things as they come or as you've agreed, and they might change. And you're dealing with partner stuff that way too, and more than one partner. So, yeah.
So my next question would be then, what are some tools in dealing with jealousy that comes up? Because I mean,
well, I can share because I just recently went through some serious jealousy, and so I can kind of share what I did. Okay. So we, you know, in the poly community, you can, you know, like what you kind of don't do. You like don't want to like just dive in and like, you want to have communication the whole time. You don't want to just kind of not express things, but at the same time, it's a double-edged sword. If your partner's too communicating, like expressing too much, then you can get really jealous or frustrated depending on what you're comfortable with, right? Like you might not want to know all the details. But so for me recently, it was the pandemic. We had been exposed to COVID, and my second son, like 13-year-old, he had spent the night at a friend's house, and mom calls me after 3 nights and she says, hey, by the way, I'm positive for COVID. And so we run our own business and we couldn't afford to quarantine the whole family and both of us, Joseph and I. So we decided to split the family up and have just some of us be exposed and some of us continue on as normal so that they could interface with clients. So Joseph was going to do that. And I was going to go take care of, you know, our kids. So, and we have one child with special needs. So then he decided we were at a friend's house and she offered to watch him. So for 2 weeks. So then what happened was, and she's one of our dear friends. And what ended up happening is that Joseph stayed there too, while I was quarantining for 2 weeks. And he's been interested in her for years. And I've known this, you know, And when we decided to have our baby, and I requested that we like bring it back in and be monogamous, he was cool with that. But he'd always wanted to be exploring a relationship with her. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden he's staying at her house for 2 weeks, and he's like asking me, hey, can we open our relationship right now? And I'm like at the house with the baby, and I've got the sick kid essentially, and sorry, don't no, if you can tell them sorry. Anyway, so I'm like, no. Well, at first I was like, no, that doesn't feel good to me. I'm feeling really stuck right now. Mm-hmm. But then I was like, oh, okay, I guess. So I wasn't honoring my truth. And in that experience, by not honoring my truth, I felt more jealous.
Yeah.
And so like, why don't you come here? Come here. Okay.
Baby.
Tell her.
Oh no.
Okay. That's all right. So anyway, why don't I pause and mute, and someone else can go, and I'll finish the story after
Okay.
I'm done. Okay. Jealousy. I mean, I guess the way, I think of, it's like, jealousy is like, it's a natural emotion. I think sometimes in the non-monogamy world, there's like, just don't be jealous. You should let everybody be free and, get over yourself. And it's like, you know what though? It's a normal human emotion to come out. I mean, no matter how practiced you are, like, I think there's actually, I recently listened to a talk on Facebook by Jessica. She's coming out with a new book called Polysecure. What is Jessica Fern? And she talks about attachment, like your attachment style and needing secure attachment in any relationship. If you're like in a committed relationship, this doesn't necessarily have to mean like if you're just sexual casual partners or something. And oftentimes like the jealousy or that feeling is because we're feeling some kind of one of maybe two things, but it's like we're feeling that the security in the relationship is threatened. And so, or there's, right, like something's happening and somebody else is getting more than we are, or, or our own insecurities come out. So that would be like the second thing. There's some kind of like relationship insecurity, or there's something just in our own emotions and our own stuff, right, that's coming up. And both of them are actually, there's the opportunity for growth, where oftentimes if we feel jealousy, right, it's like we act out of it. Like, well, you did this, you did that to me, right? Like I'm slighted. Where really it's an opportunity to ask yourself like, oh, what's happening for me, right? Like what's underneath the jealousy, which usually is the lash out part. And am I hurt somewhere? Am I needing something? Am I needing to reassure myself, or do I need reassurance from my partner? Do we need something to reestablish security in the relationship? Like Alana was saying, right? Like I'm in a situation where like, there's so much going on and I need the security and this is too threatening right now. Like I actually need more resources from you. And so, right. And so that's actually a different conversation then a little bit, isn't it? It's like then saying like, I'm jealous, I'm pissed off at you, I can't believe you did that. Like you're stuck in the jealousy when really there's stuff underneath it that if you're able to be more present with it and kind of do some self-work around it, it's like, then you can communicate it, you can do self-care. So I'd say like what I do a lot, I communicate with my partners a lot. Like we kind of have, I don't know if it's agreements, but just knowing that it's going to come up and can we ask to set time aside if we notice that it's coming up, and we really hold space for each other to talk about it, and to say like, oh, is there anything you need? Is there something, when I'm off doing something with my partner, do we need to, have our own date night first? Do you need me, do we need to say goodnight, text every night, no matter who we're with, just to say like, hey, you're still there, right? Or things that we feel comfortable doing to maintain the relationship security. Sorry, does
that mean that you have like a main person then? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, there's how people do polyamory different. There's hierarchical. Right. It gets into a totally different topic. I wouldn't consider myself hierarchical, where somebody says I have a primary partner, a secondary partner, that sort of thing. I'm more was just talking about this with people. Like I actually tune more to the relationships that I have. So, I've had a partner for a longer period of time. And so just naturally, because we've been together for a longer period of time, there's more, right? There's just more there. Yeah. There's more attachment needs in various ways. Or newer partners that not so much, and you have new relationship energy, and it's fun and it's free, and you don't need to have quite as many agreements. So I think even that people do that really different too.
Yeah, so. I definitely have a primary partner. And thank you. Speaking of, okay.
Mama Bliss.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So
I would say all the stuff that Sarah said, and also my learning. One of the big learning when I was just mentioning that, like I recommend people that, hey, go through it, is that idea of the emotions, like actually feeling my emotions. So when we're talking about jealousy, like society basically tells us that it's bad, do not feel it, right? Just put it on other people, right? But I want to feel. So I want to feel I'm a human. I have emotions, and I want to feel anger. I want to feel joy. I want to feel sadness and jealousy. And then what does it even feel like? And then one of my really big takeaway of the idea that jealousy, when we use this word, I mean, also maybe comes it comes down to because English isn't my first language, right? So I like analyze with different words. What does it even mean? So like jealousy to me felt like this big bundle, but then I took it apart. It's actually really jealousy and envy. So it's not just one. Like whenever we see
want what they have,
bundled it all up. So I actually really try to feel it. Am I feeling jealous right now, or am I feeling envious right now? So for me, my learning came from is that I mostly deal with envy. I don't really feel jealous that much, right? Like my partners, like I don't really feel like jealousy to me is the definition that something I have and I might lose it. There's a fear involved. And envy is that this like something I want. I don't have it. I want it, right? So for me, I kind of walk around, like it doesn't have to be even a relationship. I walk around, I see the whole world as like, I fucking want that. I want that.
Yeah.
Like envy is all the time.
I think it's a human thing,
So like for me, like with my partner, like one of the really funny thing happened is that I hardly felt jealous, so I wasn't even dealing with it. But at one time there was like I felt like something weird. Like, is this jealousy? It wasn't even about she being with any other partner. She being with her best friend. And I felt jealous that way because the best friend is taking her away from me in my time.
Yeah.
Not about partners. So.
Yeah.
That's such a good point too, because when we think about jealousy, we think about that like, oh, the rage that comes with your partner cheating or sleeping with somebody else, and right? And it actually shows up in various relationships, like sibling relationships, parent-child relationships, friendships, work. Yeah. It shows up everywhere. I can't believe they got the promotion and I didn't. I mean, whatever it is. So it's like, and how do you effectively regulate that within yourself? It's like,
and
how
as
do you?
Sarah, you were saying that it could be the attachment style too, right? So is the jealousy really? So then I try to listen to it. Is it so? If it's true jealousy, where there's a fear, I might lose whatever I have. So is it really true? Is she really trying to leave me? Right? In that way, if it's not true, then I'm like, hey, jealousy, I guess you're doing the right thing.
Thanks for hanging out.
Don't show up right now because she's not trying to leave me. Right. But envy, on the other hand, is hard to deal with. And then that's been my life's work, right? And like trying to figure out. I mean, I go with like Nietzsche's philosophy where he says that envy is a good thing. Go for it. Whenever envy shows up,
shows you what you want.
Go for whatever.
Yeah.
So I kind of deal with it that way.
That's really interesting.
I like that you said those things because it's true. I think we just like put it into one category as jealousy.
Yeah.
When I think about myself being jealous, I definitely am envious. a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And I think like, so for me, when I was feeling all that jealousy, when, you know, when he was staying with our friend, and I was scared because I was jealous and envious both, because I wanted the freedom to be able to be out and about. And I wanted that NRE, that like lovey new relationship energy. I wanted to be able to fall in love, but then I was also afraid I had both. And, you know, and I also, what I decided to do is, I was not being truthful to myself, you know, by saying, okay, go ahead, even though I didn't want that. And it was because I was feeling vulnerable because we just had a baby and body changes and all these things, right? And so I'm like, I just really wanted that assurance. And so when I started on like reflecting and gardening and thinking, so that was another thing. I distracted myself from my feelings. Not to say I didn't feel them, I felt them, but I didn't dwell. I like gave myself something to do. I made a garden, you know, I tended to the garden, I planted seeds, I watered, you know, and then I also had kids. So I was distracted with that. But what I ended up doing is like talking a lot with my partner and just expressing my feelings and kind of I wrote about it. You know, I was like, I reflected and journaled about what I was experiencing. That was helpful. And then finally I just called her and I was like, hey friend, you know, her name, but I was like, hey, I really I wanted to talk to you about this. And she was like, well, you know what, right now isn't a good time. I see that you're vulnerable and I see that you're not in a space for this. So I'm not even going to entertain this idea, because I don't want to hurt our friendship and our connection. And I think as a metamor, like when you have a partner and you're seeing that they're struggling with another, like their partnerships are struggling, and you can give some space for empathy and connectivity and compassion, you're setting yourself up for the long game. You know what I'm saying? So you might want this partnership, but if you take it right now, it could actually damage their relationship, which then could bring on all types of negative emotions to your relationship together as the two, you know? So I think that her response to that made me feel way more relaxed, supported. I felt like I could trust her. And even though I wasn't ready to open our relationship and I was feeling forced to do so, I was able to sink into this like deep love and trust of my metamor, you know?
Yeah.
Potential. I mean, it ended up not happening, but I think it was just really, for me, really insightful to be able to see how she could read that situation so well. And she had such emotional intelligence around it that she was like, no, I'm not ready. She's not ready. I don't want to open this up. Like, I would love to explore this with you, but it's not time, you know? And I think timing is really crucial.
Yeah.
Totally. You know? That reminds me of the word, this is a big word in non-monogamy world, is compersion.
Yeah.
And compersion is this, oh gosh, I'm like, where's my list? I'm going to, but it's basically this feeling or this, it's almost like the opposite of jealousy in a way, where if you have enough trust or whatever it is with your partner, you actually start feeling happy that they're happy. Yeah. You start feeling like you're excited for them, like they get to go have a sexual experience. They're right, like they're enjoy because they just met somebody new, or their relationship that they've had for a while is going really well, and you start feeling really like happy for them, you know? Yeah. And sometimes getting that back too, where your partner's like, you know, I'm really happy that you get to like go do the sexual thing with somebody else because that's not what we have. Or I'm so excited that you get to, you know, because you're just really excited to give that kind of openness, or to give, like you're giving each other that freedom and supporting it. I mean, there's that support, right? And I've had it where I have compersion and jealousy at the same time.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Where I'm like, gosh, I'm so happy that you get to do it. It's going to make you like, right. Because there's this like deep empathy for this person where I'm like, I'm so excited for you. Like you really, like, I want you to feel this level of happy. Right. And then also, but I want to feel that level of happy, you know, or so it can be both at the same time. Or I've had a lot of compassion for metamors, like tons. Or, right. And to say like, oh, you know, why don't, you know, really feeling not responsible for, but very sensitive and empathic towards my partner's partners too. And I want to make sure that, you know, that everybody's communicating or that everything's okay. And it's not like, oh, that's the other person. Right. No, it's like, no, we're all we're all doing this. Like we're all right. I want to make sure everybody's like, how's that going? Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I have one situation where the metamor, like my partner, he's ex-partner now, but his metamor and I are better friends and more connected than they are since they broke up. We're like, creating that community together.
Yeah.
It's pretty beautiful. And I wanted to quick mention that like jealousy is so natural. Our little, we have a 1-year-old and she gets jealous all the time. The other kids will come to hug me, just hug me, and she'll go, no, and she'll run over and push them away. It's like we deal with this since we're little itty bitty babies. And and I think that that's part of the dedication. Like one of the reasons I love the, polyamory or ethical non-monogamy is because it gives you that opportunity to grow past these like limitations that we have generally as humans, because we've said, no, we're not going to touch this topic. We're going to avoid it as much as possible and hide it. And, but jealousy, when you actually, it's like any emotion, fear, pain, suffering, any of those things, as soon as you can like look at it, breathe into it, be present with it, hold it, and not try to repress it, then you can move through it. And I think that's my biggest takeaway from giving birth, honestly, at home is having had 4 home births in water. Like, I'm not afraid to feel pain. I'm not afraid to feel jealousy. I'm not afraid to feel fear, because those are the emotions that have brought me the greatest gifts of my life.
Yeah, totally. It's like we forget that there's other ways to deal with jealousy than controlling all of the elements outside of ourselves. Right.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, right. Like, I'm feeling jealous. No, I have to control everything. This isn't happening. You, right. And it's like, wow, I'm feeling jealous. Can I give myself a ton of care? Will this also blow through? Can I also see a different side of this? Is there a different way to meditate, to give myself a ton of love, to communicate with my partner so that they can, give me some level of reassurance or support that maybe I didn't realize I needed, right? Like those, we think jealousy, and this is what happens with jealousy, and you just make sure you never feel jealousy. Actually.
You find, you think about who in your network of people can you talk to about it that can help reassure you. That's not going to give you more poison. Oh, yeah, you should be mad at him, but someone's going to give you compassion and love.
That's a good. I think about myself doing it, and there's so much fear.
Yeah.
God, and I think about attachment styles. I think about childhood trauma. You know what I mean? Like so much is triggered.
Yeah.
And oh my God, the growth sounds like it would be amazing. It would be so
and
hard.
You're talking about feeling all the feelings, and the idea that, the people left and right throw around the phrase of negative emotions. I feel like there's none of it is negative, right? Like, think about joy, like, oh, it's positive emotion. We should feel joy. Like, what if you find joy by hurting people? Like, that's kind of bad. You shouldn't feel joy. So that's negative right there. So like all the feelings, we should feel it. And then jealousy, as we've all talked about, there are ways to deal with it, like being in a community, that right there. So.
And that's such a difference too, right? Like, as soon as you hear the word jealousy, you automatically, even in my mind, I think like, oh God, everybody's going to fight and there's drama. Right. And really it's like, what if, it's like, well, can jealousy be something where you hold space for somebody and support them and give them love and care? Right. Like, and while still giving love and care to other relationships and partners, is that possible? And it's like, actually, yes, but it's just everybody understanding themselves and practicing, right? Like being with their emotions and learning how to communicate and asking for what they need and learning how to give that. And it's messy sometimes. This is not smooth sailing, but
I'm sure it is.
But
it is.
It's beautiful though.
It's so important when you're in an ethical monogamous relationship to know your truths and to like honor your truths and to speak your truths. Because if you just are like trying to go along with the other person, or you're trying to control the other person, then what ends up happening is that it's just a hot mess, so much drama, and you end up agreeing to things you don't actually want, and self-sabotage. So it's so important to be true to yourself, and to know to be true to yourself. Sometimes you have to have long, hard conversations with people and be able to say, okay, what really makes me feel safe, and how can I feel connected enough to be like, okay, I can let you fly, because I know that I'm safe in our relationship, and I know that I'm safe in myself. And but it's really, there's a lot of like self-reflection that has to happen to know your truth. And oftentimes we learn our truths through not honoring our truths and understanding, okay, well, that wasn't my truth. That's not actually what I wanted. And sometimes retrospect is the best way to learn.
Yeah, I mentioned about community, right? My partner, when she started, she just like went to like meetup group to like really talk to people, and it wasn't working out. So she started her own, and she's been running this group for like 5 years straight. So we just like this kind of conversation, we get together once a month and we just bring up all the topics to talk about, and then having this close knit community really helps. So that's another way to, like, if someone is interested, like, find your hobbies.
I would say community is a big one too. Like talking to people that are also open-minded at the very least, but at least, practicing it or have tried it or understand, because they're not going to say, well, why are you giving like tons of judgmental, right? Judgmental. Well, that's why you don't date more than one person. I should have, so the advice is more leaning towards this normative monogamy, committed escalator relationship, moving into marriage type of format. And so it is totally helpful in my processing of all this, getting all the resources and talking to people. And when I'm having a jealous moment or my monogamy programming has kicked in and I'm like, I can't make sense of this, to have other polyamorous friends going, oh, I get it. Okay. Like, yep, I'll hold the space for you and like help you walk through this one without shaming you for doing this. Right. So.
Yeah. And it's some of the hardest things about it, I think, are like talking to family and like being able to like, because I mean, my parents are like happily married and have been for my entire life. And so they like 100% believe in monogamy, and like, my grandmother and all these people. And I remember like kind of like coming out or whatever, talking to them about it. And they're totally against it, but they support me in their own way, but they think it's just crazy. And I remember my grandmother, she was like super mad about like she just took all of this misunderstanding and like directed it towards my ex-husband. And I was like, no, grandma, it's okay. Like, I chose this. Like, he didn't leave me. I had another lover. And she was like, what? Just file it away under Alana's crazy and we'll move forward, but it's, at first it was really weird, but now like there's been times where Christmas, big family event, they both, Joseph and Jason would both come and like I'll hang out with all of my family. And, for years and years with my smaller intimate family, but also with my greater, like, extended family, they'd be there, both of them.
Cool. Oh, that's awesome. So you're like helping the other generation kind of grow in a way and open up.
And even though like Jason and I weren't like intimate anymore, we still love each other and we would still like connect. And it was like, I don't know, it was just really cool to see how that shifted people's perspectives. And they probably, I'm sure some of them judge me and talk shit behind my back, but I really don't care.
Maybe you planted a seed though. I mean, like that, some growth.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm happy and I tend not to care what other people think as long as I'm not harming them, I just, So I guess that probably helps.
You guys, we're going to wrap it up in like 5 minutes. I just wanted to let you know as, if you wanted to have any like last things to say.
Last things to say.
Yeah, I totally, like, we could go on forever and ever talk about so much. Oh my God. And I totally am loving this. It's amazing.
I was going to say, how is it for you, learning about it, or, I'm always curious, I always feel like when I talk to people about this, they're always like, ooh, and I'm like, it's normal and kind of like relationships. So it's not actually that like,
I dated somebody who actually like 2 years ago, who we're still friends, and he will be on one of these episodes. Love him. And he is polyamorous. So he's kind of the first one that introduced me to polyamory. I mean, it didn't go smooth. Things happened. We took some time away, like in our relationship, but it was the first time that I ever really opened my mind up to the possibility of trying polyamory. I didn't get there. I still think about it though. Like, it's still on the tip of my mind. And for the biggest reason would be for me to get over myself and my my jealousies and my insecurities and all that. Like, I just really want to move past that, honestly. And for me, I could be a sister wife. I have to, like, if I know what's going on, I'm like, okay, cool. You know, like I could be best friends with a bunch of women or with men and women. And just, if I knew what was going on, whatever that is called, like a group, whatever.
Polycule.
Huh?
Polycule.
I could do that. Like, it would be so great. So listening to it is fascinating.
When you were saying the last thing to talk about, but yeah, and you were talking about that you might be interested in it. So I would say, as a caution, I guess, is to that self, knowing yourself. It's kind of like onion, right? So you'd be like, yeah, I can do it, one layer. But it just like you just have to you'll just cry all the way down, right? But it's very
I'm sure, like a lot of crying.
I think one of the most important parts too is that there are people who have joined the poly movement in a way of kind of being players, and it's important to really like. It's all about communication. Whether you do it in polyamory or monogamy, it's all about defining your relationships, understanding, who you are, and like just having lots and lots of talks around this stuff, even uncomfortable things, because you don't want it to be someone who's just like using it as an excuse to be like pop,
Right.
You want to be able to have,
unless that's what you want.
Unless that's what
both people want.
Right. And if you know that, that's cool. But you want to be honest with each other.
You want to be honest about it. You need to say that to your people, and to yourself. Sometimes people lie to themselves and then go on do things.
Yeah.
So it's all about communication, really, is what you're saying. It's like, it's all about communication.
All about communication. And the ethical part is being honest and transparent, even if it's hard, even if you really don't want to talk about it, even if sometimes you don't want to hear it.
Which is a good practice for yourself anyways.
Yeah.
It is.
Like, oh my God, imagine like how much like shit would come off of you in doing that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally. I mean, I've been in situations where people like hated me, and this is in a small town in Costa Rica, because I was openly polyamorous and they were all cheating on each other. Everybody was cheating on everybody else, but they didn't want to talk about it. And so everything was okay, but there was all this deep resentment and frustration and pain and suffering just under the surface, which is why they directed it all at me, because I was open about it. So you just have to like sometimes guard yourself, but at the same time be like super vulnerable.
Yeah, no, I'm still good friends with my ex, and she's like, I can never do it. I would rather have men cheat on me than
really
be open like this way, right? Nope. Because she just can't.
You gotta face the stuff.
That's a lot of work, right? Work.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, she's dated so many people, and people cheated on her. She's like, I would rather deal with that than this whatever you are doing. I'm like, well, okay.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah. If people are doing, like real ethical non-monogamy, it's actually not just people sleeping around with people and who cares, right? It's actually, you're invested in the relationships, no matter how, like, even if it is just a one night thing, right? Like, you're still ethically having the conversations, getting consent, really understanding, is this okay? Is that, or trying your best anyway, growing through your own stuff. It's communication, consent, knowing yourself, finding partners that are collaborative and on the same path, I'd say, is a big one. I do a lot of, vetting. It's not really vetting, but it's just, I'm really like, I take a lot of time asking questions and really understanding and really letting somebody know, this is where I am. Are you on the same page with this? Whatever we decide on relationally. And I think that's really important for the ethical part anyway.
It's so important. And I just want to mention too, that there are people who are abusive in every realm. So, you also, like she was saying, vetting, like knowing, like, is this person like emotionally mature enough to be able to do this? Is this person someone I want to grow with? If it's just something that's just, a quick, fun adventure, that's okay. But like we're saying, like Sarah was saying, being honest about it is really important. And watching out for signs. I mean, you don't want to be in an abusive relationship, whether you're monogamous or polyamorous. The thing about a polyamorous abusive relationship is that you can you have other people to reflect to you what's going on. So it's not just you in this like vicious cycle. You're like able to talk to other partners and be like, this is happening. They're like, oh, well, that's not good. You should step out, or you should talk about it, or whatever it is. Like, you know, it's nice because it is a community. And I think that's really the foundation is ethics, connectivity, and like collaboration are so important when you're polyamorous.
I love that. Well, thank you guys so much for meeting and talking and sharing and educating me and other people. I totally appreciate each one of you.
Yeah, this is great. Fun talking about this. Yeah.
And you kicked off the first, what's that?
Oh, I said thank you.
Oh, no, thank you. You guys kicked off the first episode of the series that I'm planning on doing for polyamory.
Nice.
Because there's a lot to talk about.
There is. And thank you all for your patience with my juggling children. It was a lot there for a minute.
Your babies are so sweet.
They are.
They are. And honestly, like having had polyamorous relationships with children is super enriching to the children. Unless there's a ton of drama and it's bad, you know, but with the people that are in it with me, it's just incredibly lovely. So I promote it.
Mm-hmm. Great.
That's awesome. Yeah. All right, you guys, have a good night. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Nice to meet everybody.
Bye, guys. Bye, Emon, wherever you are.